mountains, trees, beaches, and horse rides. These are only a few of the things that you can find here in the great country of Nepal.
For those of us that went to Nepal last time, it was a no-brainer that we needed to get back there and go again. We knew this time that we wanted to have an even bigger impact, so it was important to us that we expand our team and include even more people to go over and try to make an even bigger difference.
One of the unique things about this trip to Nepal versus the last time we went is we did a lot more team training together. All 7 guys, we were able to go to Colorado a couple times. We're officially at 13,000 feet.
Woo. It was fun and a great time for all us guys to get together and actually bond.
Right on.
We're all preparing ourselves mentally and physically, spiritually even, for this challenge that was coming up.
You really listen to your friends when they tell you you got to push on, and it's going to be physically demanding, it's going to be mentally demanding, and they weren't kidding.
Before we left, we found out that we were going to be taking helicopters into a very remote area of the Himalayas. Needless to say, as guys, we were crazy pumped about the idea.
It was crazy, and then when he flipped that switch, it was like it's on. We're doing this. It's time to go. It's go time.
To say that we were all giddy like little schoolgirls would be an understatement. With every RPM that the helicopter turned up, our grins just got bigger.
It was an amazing thing to do, to ride in a helicopter, flying into the middle of the Himalayas, into mountains that you know the helicopter can't get over.
Oh man, oh man. Man, that helicopter was awesome.
Yeah, you know, as you're growing up, you think, oh, I'd love to ride in a helicopter. You don't really think that you'll be riding in a helicopter through the Himalayan mountain range, which was far and above what I ever expected it to be.
To see the mountains from that far away, it was just simply breathtaking.
As long as I live, I will never forget the image of being in a helicopter, going through the Himalayas, coming up to show with Manaslu in the background and landing in the snow. It was an absolutely incredible experience.
We got to go experience all this, and this is just day one, man. We're on our way.
You know, the first day we were on the ground, we were in Kathmandu. I was looking around, and immediately I knew that I had a skewed outlook on poverty and prosperity.
I was just completely shocked at the poverty, and there's just no sanitation, and that was in the main city. So when we first got there, it's kind of took me back. Even just that first moment is when it really hit me. You hear all of the statistics of 50% of children don't live past the age of 8. Well, when you get there, you see why. The houses they live in have open flames, and you go in there and you get all choked up just going in and out of there, let alone living in there.
The ceiling was covered in soot and tar and stuff just from having open flames constantly.
Statistics show that spending 24 hours in a house like that with an open flame, the way they have it, is the equivalent of smoking 20 to 40 packs of cigarettes a day.
I think one of the things that all the guys on the team enjoyed most for sure was getting to interact and play with a lot of the kids. There were kids, of course, in every village that we went to.
Nothing really can prepare you for them. When you get there, it's incredible. They just swarm you like you're a celebrity.
They're so happy. I mean, you look at the children and you can see that they're dirty, you can see that their clothes are not new, but they're happy and they're excited to get to play with somebody and have fun. Everywhere we went, we would make, you know, little balloons out of the gloves that we took and put faces on them and things like that.
One of my favorite things was getting my camera, turning the viewfinder around and letting them see themselves, because they don't get to see themselves on video pretty much ever. So it felt like I was giving them some kind of joy in just that.
First time we went, we kind of set up medical camps where we were in one location. People came to us to be treated. This time, the medical care that we gave was very much house to house.
It was so much more personal, and we actually got to go into people's houses and treat them like a traveling doctor, I guess you could say.
It was very unique from that standpoint. I actually liked it a lot better because we were able to get into the lives of the people. We were in their homes. We were able to see the way they live and hear exactly what was going on with them and see the problems that they faced.
As rewarding as it is to help people medically, there's a fair amount of frustration as well, because what it comes down to it, you simply don't have the time or the supplies or the ability to help every single person out there that's in need.
One day as we were treating some people in one particular village, some of the villagers came to Chandra and told him that they had a paralyzed man that they wanted us to see.
This man here obviously had a stroke. Not sure about how long ago, but looks like he's lost the ability on one side of his body to use his arm. So we're going to check him out and see if we can help.
They had really no frame of reference for what a stroke was. It didn't necessarily make much sense to them, and so I spent some time trying to educate them on that and talk about some safety. Because of these two-story homes, getting in and out of the living space of these homes can be incredibly dangerous for somebody like this gentleman who had a stroke. Their primary question was whether or not he was going to get better, whether he was going to be healed. And I had to instruct them that that wasn't going to be the case, that the stroke that he had was going to have a long-lasting impact. And one of the things that the wife was concerned of was that his hand was really contracted. It was kind of balled up into almost like a fist. And oftentimes, even with stroke victims, the hand will contract like that, but it can be kind of worked back out, and sometimes they can regain a little bit of functionality. He didn't seem very open to wanting to talk about it. He kind of drew back from her as she was trying to explain what was going on with his hand. But again, it was another opportunity to educate them on how to best care for him, given his circumstances.
One of the most interesting and proud moments, I could say, was actually seeing my team and then Steve, our team leader, go in there with the knowledge they had and take care of these people.
It's well documented that they don't have good hygiene practices, which obviously adds a whole other wrinkle to the medical side of things. Because in addition to treating wounds, we had to explain to them, if you're going to take care of this wound going forward, you must wash.
She'll need to use that soap. Wash it.
You must clean the affected area or else it will never get better.
There were several instances where you'd come into a village and people would just mob you, and they want to know what you've got and why you're here and what you're doing. So I pulled out the bag of soap and there was just people everywhere.
You throw out soap and it literally looks like you're throwing money out.
Kids, women trying to grab for this soap. Well, you know, you try to do a demonstration and show them how to use the soap in hopes that these people would just clean their hands and so they wouldn't be completely filthy.
For the most part, many of the medical issues that we came across, in our country anyway, would be relatively minor issues. You get patched up and you move on with your life. But because of the hygiene issues there, these things persist.
He's got an open wound that is not healing because he doesn't clean. Their hygiene's pretty poor. So it's basically got like an open wound in the middle of an abscess. So see if we can get him some antibiotics to kick out whatever bacteria is there. Get him some creams to hopefully clean it up.
It's so strange to have to teach something that we do every day without even thinking.
Every bit of medical that we did, it was sort of just, we met someone in some place that was in need and we did what we could to meet that need. There was a time where we met a lady on the trail who had this giant gaping wound in her hand.
Apparently the day before she had been chopping firewood and blacked out and chopped into her hand.
It was bad. I mean, and especially when you think about being that far out, that's scary.
She then rubbed pine gum on it.
Apparently yesterday when she did this, she cut into a pine tree and got the gum out of it, the syrup, and put it on her wound, and that's like a natural medicine.
It's mind-blowing to think of how dangerous it really is up there and just the lack of everything.
On top of that, there's the frustration of language barriers. So trying to get instructions for medicine from an English-speaking person through a translator, potentially through another translator, down to the patient, so to speak. Wash her hands and her. It's very, very difficult. We had a couple of instances where this was compounded by people who thought they were sort of being helpful. I had a gentleman who felt the need to put his hands on everything I was doing when I was trying to help someone. He went so far as to grab stuff almost out of my hand or out of my pocket to inspect it and fiddle with it, and trying to get him to stop when he doesn't understand what I'm saying and I certainly don't understand what he's saying, and reinforced the need over there to have order to what you're doing, because it can so easily spill into chaos because we can't communicate what's needed to these people that need the help.
So as we were walking along the trail one day, we came across a gentleman in between villages. He had a son who was paralyzed that he'd like for us to stop and see. So he took us to his house, and we found his son, who at this time was 40 years old, and he had been laying paralyzed in the same bed for 18 years. I sat down next to the gentleman and asked if it was okay to remove his lower blankets to take a look at what was going on. Would Would it be okay if we took a look? So when I pulled the blankets back and saw his legs, I knew immediately that he had some major issues going on. He had some major skin problems going on with his legs. They were very dark, very scaly. It almost looked as if they had been burned. It was very disheartening. It was very disturbing, honestly. Oddly enough, when I was talking to him about kind of his condition, he had some movement in his feet. He was able to move his feet a little bit. And so I figured out that he wasn't neurologically paralyzed. He hadn't had like a spinal cord injury or anything like that. It was troubling, and of course there wasn't a lot we could do for him.
Just to think that somebody in those conditions can hold on for that long and find something to live for is really humbling to see that.
Toward the end of it, we ran into a village doctor by the name of Pema. He's the one that just spends like 5 days a month at home because he visits people and he takes people medicine.
So this is Pema. He is the only doctor in the entire Nupri Valley. So everywhere we've been on this trip, everywhere we're going to continue to go, anybody who needs any help medically, he's the guy. So he travels up and down this valley constantly. He's actually away from his home here the majority of every month, taking care of other people.
So we loaded him up with a good supply of our medicines out of our pack.
So we gave him some medicines today from our pack that we brought, and it's going to do great things.
Yes.
One particular day we were in a village called Chalk, and Chandra, the head Nepali on our team, came and told me that they had a cow that they wanted me to look at. And I thought at first that for sure he was joking.
When he gave delivery, something is hanging there.
Hanging outside?
Yeah.
Afterbirth. But he quickly informed me that he wasn't joking. The cow was very important to the family. And so apparently they were told that this cow had recently delivered a calf and that the placenta had not come all the way out. I'm honestly at a loss for how I would go about doing that. I did not know what to do exactly, but I was happy to take a look because they really wanted somebody to look at the cow. They bring the cow out from underneath this house. It's very dark. You can't really see it as it comes out. And once it's finally in the sunlight, I realized right away that it's not placenta at all.
Oh, Andy.
So I decided to at least sort of examine what was going on with the cow. Gave a little feel to what was going on.
I'd say that's uterus.
Yeah, I think that's a prolapsed uterus. And immediately realized that this cow wasn't going to have any of it. And so I kind of backed off because I was concerned that if we did something that had the chance of maybe helping the cow, that the cow might in fact be made worse or the cow might even die. And I didn't want ourselves to be held responsible or be blamed for that, or for it to reflect badly on Mountain Child. Whether it be human or animal, sometimes there's just not anything you can do. Even though we've come all this way and brought good medicines, we just do what we can.
We all had something to carry with us, but the medical supplies and the medical that we done, we've seen a lot of people in need, and we've seen a lot of people that we could not help.
We visited a monastery in Low. That was a beautiful place at the foot of Manaslu. Amazing views, and you walk in and there's dozens of kids whose parents are nowhere to be found working. And these monasteries, you can feel it as you go through the towns, this sort of heaviness that they kind of lord over everything, and it's their way or else. We spoke with the Lama at a monastery and we asked him, why did you want to become a Lama? His answer absolutely stunned me, and it revolved around this idea of simply controlling the monastery.
If we are not monk, then it is very difficult to control the situation of the monastery. So he thought that it will be better to control, and it's better to become monk for religions and for the monastery.
He became a monk and then a Lama solely to maintain control of that monastery, and by proxy, I guess, control of that area. And it struck me as so empty and so hollow that this is the faith that they chase.
The day after we arrived at the monastery was the beginning of Losar, which is the Tibetan New Year. So we were excited to get to be there for that and see kind of the way they celebrate.
Oh, happy Losar!
During this time of Losar, we were subject to a number of rather odd Losar traditions.
What happened? Steve dumped me. Look at me. I'm a mess.
Tiny horse riding, where we got to sit on horses that were far too small for men like Todd. and we're a little bit on the unbridled side, I guess you could say.
I was able to ride a horse, which was pretty cool. A very wee horse. The horse took off and it just went wherever it wanted to. It wasn't going to do anything I asked it to do, and finally the owner got it wrangled up and I got off the horse, and then Todd steps up, and like I said, it's a small horse. Todd's a big man.
They start telling me put my foot in the stirrup. Well, as tall as I am, I just kind of threw my leg over this horse and off I went. And I started riding this horse around, and immediately I realized that this horse doesn't understand English. And this horse, I mean, just keeps running and running, and I see this ledge coming at me. So I just do the Hawkeye Monty Henson, and I do the flying dismount and land on my feet.
I don't really ride horses very often, but the couple times I have, the horse listened to me. These horses were like teenager horses. They just did whatever the heck they wanted, which is a little bit scary when you're on the side of a mountain. You're not exactly sure what the horse is going to do. I had to pray a bit because I was for certain that my horse was going to run down these steps and into oblivion.
Losar doesn't end until the booze and food runs out. They make the booze and food themselves, which means Losar can go on for question mark.
In Chalk, we were invited into one of their monasteries, and it was Losar. We went in there and it was just an all-out crazy party in their holy place.
It's like Paul talks about in Corinthians, you know, when everybody goes to the temples and just the debauchery that's there. Just the contrast between the despair that's around them each day and then this celebration. And when I'm talking about celebration, I mean the whole town's just throwed down drunk. I knew going into this was going to be pretty tough, and it was. But it was very rewarding. It was a group of guys saying that we can do this. I have no doubt in my mind. And for a people group that can offer us nothing except the smile on their face and just the hospitality of who they are.
The trip definitely changed my life completely for the better. It opened my eyes to the minuscule things in day-to-day life that we tend to pray for, ask the Lord to help us with, or just get upset with, are so minuscule in the grand scheme of things. I was able to carry medical supplies, I was able to carry soap, I was able to just be a helping hand as Steve was trying to help these people. I could be there and he would, you know, just be a helping hand. It was an amazing feeling.
It is nearly impossible to succinctly say how this trip impacted me. The basic overall takeaway, I guess, was that I've got to go again to Nepal and beyond. This time around, seeing the people in these different situations really hit home for me, really reiterated there's so much need. There's so much need that there's not enough trips or enough teams to cover it all. It would be easy enough to say that and then get overwhelmed by it and feel like you can't do anything, but my God tells me something different and tells me that I can't say that whatever it takes, I've got to go.
You are mentally and physically strong if you can do this kind of stuff. Your responsibilities, all that stuff, you leave it behind to set off to really show these people that there's more to life than what they're accustomed to for so many years.
I think the biggest thing that I got out of this trip this time, the biggest thing that I took with me, was just how much of a long-term work this is and that this requires to impact the lives of the people that live in these remote villages in the mountains. And so from a spiritual perspective, from just a physical care perspective, the mountains represent such a geographic boundary. It feels like a daunting task. It feels like 9 or 10 days of commitment in the mountains doesn't do a lot, but it does, and it takes every bit of that, short-term and long-term, really, to be able to make an impact, and I would absolutely go again.
It was so much different than the last trip in not only just a physical way, but also in a spiritual way. The Holy Spirit works in very many mysterious ways. I mean, ways that we can't even comprehend. These people do not think the same way that we do. They don't even worship the same God as we do. But they can see the light coming from the eyes of the people going.
I believe physically, mentally, and spiritually I grew as a person. I would do it again in a heartbeat. If you can make it, then make it, because nothing will ever be the same.